Hello, and welcome to the Big Apple School Podcast, the weekly English show where we speak about everything under the sun. The major goal of this show is to help you improve your English and, of course, learn something new. My name is Katja, I'm your host, and today with me,
Natalie
and
Benjamin.
Guys, we're doing our best to be as useful to you as possible, and we would love to get some feedback about it. Subscribe to our pages on Apple, Yandex, SoundCloud, Google. You can find us on any platform, really, and let us know what you think about our show. Rate and review our podcast, give us stars, leave some comments, ask questions, and feel free to send your ideas about our next episodes. We always want to know what you think, because it will help us a lot to become even better. All right, here we're going to jump to the topic of urbanization, which is, something so big and sounds so scary. So why don't we help our listeners and tell them what does it actually mean? So what is it? What is urbanization?
I guess urbanization is just the concept of cities developing and expanding in size and the consequences that are associated with this expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agree.
Very convenient.
Good definition, actually, yeah.
So, but since, it would be a little bit boring to just talk about, how cities grow and what processes it involves. So why don't we talk about our experiences living in different places? So, and I want to ask you, so what kind of places have you lived in? Big cities, mega cities, villages, rural areas. So what's your life experience like?
So I think I've never lived in a really big city. It's always been 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million of population.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like Novosibirsk basically. So, or even smaller. For example, Edinburgh, it was 500,000 of population or around that number. And yeah, that's it. I've never lived in a big city, like mega city or something like that.
Would you like to?
Not really, I think, actually.
All right. Ben, what about you?
Until recently, I've only lived in big cities. So
so for you, it's like, a life getting quieter.
Yeah, life, kind of
fewer
quieter.
people.
It's nicer. I mean, last year I lived in Vegas, and this year now I live in Novosibirsk, which are both comparable in size.
Wait, so Vegas it doesn't have that many people, does it?
It's 1.5 million people, I believe. Yeah. So it's sizable, but it's not London, it's not New York or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But previously I have experience living in huge cities, and yeah.
So how many people live in London right now? It's like 5 million people?
Well, it depends if you talk about central London or if you're talking about greater London in general. So greater London, you have to incorporate all the satellite towns and the towns which are on the rail lines that serve
How many
London.
would that be? How many people do you think?
Also, greater London itself is about 9 million people, but if you incorporate... So you have this road called the M25, which is the main ring road which circles London, the city of London. And if you incorporate everything within there, maybe it's 11 million, possibly more. It's big.
M25, you said?
Yeah, M25 is the main ring road.
I think this road was showed in Good Omens TV show as like the road. It's like the hell road because it's always jammed, and everything.
What's this show? Great Almonds?
Good Omens.
Good Omens, yeah.
Good Almonds. All right, I've never heard of this.
It's based on the book by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Okay.
So you should watch it. It's so
fun.
fun.
The show is so good. Actually, the actors are just fantastic, seriously. So good.
It has, there's a risk of us just moving to the topic of TV shows again. So, okay, we we should control ourselves, Natalie.
Yeah.
Because give us, give us the freedom to...
we can easily slide into that.
Yep. Anywho, so 11 million people in Greater London. Oh, wow.
That's a big place.
Yeah. So, and what's the smallest area that you've lived in? Like maybe villages, has there ever been a village, rural area?
I've lived in Bristol. That has about 400,000 people. So it's kind of comparable to Edinburgh.
Exactly.
In a way.
Yeah.
I loved Bristol. It's such a fun place.
I have a question. Would you say that it's a city then or
it's
a town?
City. It's a city. Technically it is.
Okay.
So it's called the City of Bristol. The council or the government that runs Bristol is called the City of Bristol.
Because I think in Russia, if it's 500,000, 400,000, we would rather call it a town.
Yeah, probably. But again, if it's more than 1 million, it's already a city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because-
Actually, I was thinking about that, and I think we should define like how we are defining a big city. Like from which point of view, like of a European person or an Asian
Yeah.
person. Because if we speak from the point of view of a Chinese person, like 1.5 million of population, it's a village,
Yeah, it's a
basically.
village.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I
So-
mean, it's a small city. Like it's a town, okay. Yeah, 1 million of population, it's a village, yeah.
Because I would say that if a place has 1 million people, then it's a city. Everything less might be, well, depends. If it's like 900,000, maybe it is a city, relatively small city. But if it's like 600,000 and less, then I would call that a town. And then a village, what would be a village?
No, less than 10,000. No, not 10,000. Be less than that. Be less than 5,000.
I would even say
yes.
like 15, 10, I would say.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Something like that. All right. Yeah, because I am from Yakutsk, which is, I think it was like at the time that I was living there, it was 250,000 people. So it felt, of course, it was a town. Sometimes it felt like a village because everybody knew it was impossible to hide anything. Honestly, you want to go out with somebody, the whole town knows it.
Oh my God, I can't imagine that, really. I've never lived like in a really small
you can imagine
town.
250,000 people minus, little kids under, let's say, 10. Then you have old people. Okay, this is also, different category. So people around your age, there aren't that many. So, and, in a small town, you don't say, I don't know this person. You say, yeah, I know, but I've never met them. So because
That's so
in
funny.
this way, you know everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, gossip flies around in smaller places.
Oh, yeah, so fast. But then I moved to Novosibirsk, which at that time, now it's almost 2 million people, I think. It's like 1.9,
Yes,
1.8.
probably. Yeah, I haven't checked.
I think 11 years ago, it was more like 1.5, so 1.6 maybe. And it seemed huge to me. The whole idea of having to take some bus and go somewhere, you need to buy gifts for New Year. You have to actually spend like 40 minutes going to the center. Unbelievable. And traffic jams. Oh, that's what it is. Didn't like
Whoa,
that.
so you didn't have like
No.
any traffic jams in Yakutsk?
Because Yakutsk is a small town, so not really. They say that now more people have cars, so, and yeah, there are some traffic jams, but I had never experienced anything like that before I moved here. So to me, Novosibirsk was just huge.
Well, I read somewhere that Novosibirsk is one of the fastest growing cities in the world.
It is so
Exactly, yeah, because it's only 127
now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, absolutely, yes. So this is why it is in the Guinness Record Book, and it has the same, let's say, rate of growth as Chicago did. So that's why it's called Siberian Chicago.
Yeah.
It sounds fancy.
And then when I moved to Boston, so just like with London, Boston itself might not be that big. Well, although compared to London, it's tiny. It's a tiny baby because it's 600,000 people. Less
Well, you
than a
also
million.
have Cambridge as well. So you have Boston and Cambridge. Is that one city or is it
No,
two
it's
different
two.
cities?
It's two cities. So Boston and Cambridge are two cities, but we have Boston, then we have Greater Boston, which includes all of these cities and towns like Cambridge, Medford, Waltham, and all those. And Greater Boston area is 6 million people. And I lived in two towns. The first year I lived in Waltham, which is 50,000 people, and then I moved to Wellesley, which is less than 30,000 people, and it's just it's literally, you have nothing. You have one coffee shop. Okay,
Oh my
two.
God.
Sorry.
Whoa.
2 supermarkets, which are way too expensive for you to go to.
So where did you buy groceries?
Well, I had to, sometimes go to those expensive supermarkets and really count what I'm buying. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
okay, not that. That's too expensive. But if you have anyone with a car, you can ask them, to drive you to a supermarket, which is like 15-minute ride away, maybe more. But it's a highway, so you can't really walk there. Oh, well, you can through some neighboring towns, but it would take 2.5 hours one way. So
Oh,
I was
God.
not ready for that. So yeah, and it's basically just, fancy boutiques. So not much to do. Every time you want to do something fun, you have to go to a bigger city. And given that the fare was...
So what would you do for fun on the weekends?
Just go to a big city, I guess.
Well, yeah, I would go to Boston. And I was, when it was the semester time, we had a shuttle, which was like $3 one way. So it is affordable. But during the break, so spring break, fall break, there were no shuttles. So you could only take the train, the commuter rail. And it was $8.50 one way. God, I hated that. So I guess this is like one of the biggest disadvantages of a big city or a big area like that. It's very expensive transport.
Oh, it's crazy. Like in London, you'd pay. Oh, I used to work in a hotel in central London, and I'd live in this place called Streatham, which is southeast London. Not southeast, southwest London. And just to get the train in every day cost me £8 every day.
That's crazy.
So what's that?
That's
like
quite a
800
lot,
rubles?
Yeah.
And then that adds up every day. So if you work 5-6 days a week, then you're spending.
That's crazy, because I remember seeing, again, so people who take the commuter rail to go to Boston to work. So they can live in towns depending on the zone. So, if you live closer to Boston, you pay less. The further you go, the more expensive that is. So I lived in zone 3 out of 6. So that was $8.50 one way. So, and you can buy, what is it, like a pass, unlimited pass.
Yeah.
And it was like $400 per month. And it's just crazy. And if you have a car, you have to pay for gas. And then the parking rate in the center of Boston is like $12 per hour. And if you want to have this pass for a month, it's also like $400 or $500. This is insane. So yeah, I think this is one of the reasons why people don't really want to live in huge cities or, in...
What I love about Novosibirsk is how the metro is 25 rubles.
Yeah.
And that's such
It's
like
26 now.
Oh, whoa,
is it?
Really?
oh dear.
Oh, since when?
Since like February or the end of January, I think.
I haven't been there for like a while, I guess.
But yeah, of course, compared to other places, it's not that much.
So
Yeah,
in London, the
definitely.
tube costs just within one zone, it costs £2.40 one way. So that's almost 10 times the price of transportation here in Novosibirsk.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Actually, transportation is pretty cheap in Russia, especially like
Compared to, let's say,
Yeah.
Europe and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. It's affordable. It's affordable.
Yeah.
So, and actually, what do you think about Novosibirsk from the point of view of urbanization? So do you think it's a, logically built city? What do you think about the transport? So
I like it because I was born here, so
yeah, you're a little bit biased right now.
Exactly.
But wait, you've lived in other places as well. So you can compare them, in terms of structure.
I think it's pretty. It's not as bad, You can just go places easily. Of course, there are some traffic jams. There's a lot of
Some?
traffic. Yeah, okay, there's a lot of traffic. But I think it's pretty good in terms of, like moving around. And I guess for me, because I don't move around as much,
Ben, that would be interesting to hear what you
Yeah,
think.
I've only been here for 2 and a bit months, but so far I love this place. You just have everything you need in such a relatively small space. I mean, obviously it's a big city, but a relatively small space. You have malls, you have attractions, you have bars, restaurants, everything you need. And if you live in the Centralny districts, you can just walk everywhere.
Yeah, it's very walkable.
Yeah.
Natalie, wait, do you live close to the subway station?
Oh, not really. It's like maybe 20 minutes walk, something like that.
Okay.
So I never walk, actually. Yeah, just take a bus or something like that. Yeah, or taxi. Taxis, actually, I would like to speak about taxis in Novosibirsk.
Yeah,
It's
go
like,
for it.
oh my God, I love taxis here. They're so cheap and like
Right?
really affordable.
Right?
Yeah.
This is also, one thing. Well, even though Novosibirsk is considered to be a big city in Russia, yet the taxi prices are, again, yes, affordable.
Yeah, much lower than in Moscow, say, or St. Petersburg.
I've got a little side question. Do you tip in taxis in Novosibirsk or no?
Almost never.
Yeah.
Well, the app, Yandex Taxi, that gives you the opportunity to tip, and it has options like 5%, 10%, and or like 5, 7, 10, something like that. But it's not a necessity, so usually people don't. This
I did
is
sometimes, like, when the driver was particularly nice, or he or she did something like really nice, or just in these cases.
Because I once gave a driver like an extra 100 rubles because that's like, what is that? It was £1 in England. So I thought, all right, let's just give him an extra 100 rubles. And he was looking at me really grateful. And I thought, okay, it's just a little.
But you know, you shouldn't be counting in pounds. You know,
Yeah,
otherwise, everything is so cheap.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I think in general, we don't have this culture of tipping as, as widespread as it is in other countries. Because let's say in the US, if you can't tip at least 15%, you just
rude.
don't go to a place. If you can't afford it, don't go to a restaurant. That's it. End of story. Well, because of the way that the waiters are getting paid.
Exactly.
Because they don't get the minimum wage, which is now $14 in Boston area. They get 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And the rest they only get from the tips. In Novosibirsk, that's not really the case.
Yeah.
But I love it how you both like, the city and find it so logical.
What about you, actually?
Well, so there are, of course, some disadvantages and advantages. So, of course, yes, we have a great public transport system, meaning, we have the buses, the subway, the trams, the trolleys, everything. But at the same time, I used to live in Schluss, which is, 25 kilometers away from Novosibirsk, from the center of Novosibirsk. So I got really tired of spending almost 2 hours to get to the center. So 1 hour and a half to get to work, 1 hour and a half to get back. Compared to Moscow, of course, that would be amazing. Just 1 hour and a half. But for Novosibirsk, no, it's so tiring. And in the morning, I was lucky. Because I lived at the final stop. So meaning the bus, started the way on my bus stop.
Yeah, so you got to take a seat, actually.
Exactly. But I also would take, this marshrutka. So, which means that I was able to actually take a seat. But there were people who couldn't even get inside. So they had to wait for the next one, out there in the cold. So I'm pretty sure something can be done with that.
Yeah, must be done probably.
Yeah, so I still think we don't have enough, and then the traffic jam problem is just crazy. But at the same time, so Novosibirsk has 2 banks, and there are only 3 bridges now, as far as I know. It's 3 or 4? Let's say some bridges. So and there's one of them, which is the main one, which is being used by thousands of cars every day, that hasn't been repaired for the last 80 years.
Seriously.
But they have to, because it's on brink of, collapsing. So it's dangerous.
That would be very nice if it breaks in the Siberian winter.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But how can you can't just, basically start repairing it and, close it for several months. How are people going to get from one bank to another if they are drivers?
So we need more bridges first.
Exactly. So, and that's just absolutely impossible to do right now. Well, I mean, I know that they are building a new bridge, but still. So this is a problem. Well, Ben is probably going to find out in the summer, but do you remember the lovely smell of a pig farm in the summer?
Oh, what happened?
What
happened?
What?
Wait, were you here in the summer, Natalie? When did you come back?
No, I came back like in August.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So smell of what?
Of a pig farm. You come outside and you smell smells.
Oh my God, really?
Because there's a pig farm not far.
I can't wait.
And I remember we had a podcast about something with Mike, and he's like, yeah, I have a question. What the hell is that? I'm like, yep, that's exactly what you think it is. Yeah.
So in the summer, I know obviously in Russian cities, they turn off the hot water for 2 weeks to repair the pipes.
Yeah.
So we're going to have no hot water, so no showers and pig farm smells.
Oh.
This is going to be
Welcome
fun.
to Mother Russia. But I mean, look, after that, whatever inconvenience you might have in other countries becomes such a minor inconvenience. So it's nothing,
It's
really.
like, this rough experience that gives you, makes you tougher, kind of.
Well, at least we have running water. At least we have that. But
And
Even
then,
if it's cold.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still water.
who was it? Yeah, I think it was Mike who said, a true Siberian man can take his showers cold.
it's true.
Yeah,
Mujik.
exactly. Yeah.
So, and then one more thing that I would like to add about Novosibirsk is that, you know how a lot of cities, especially in Europe, I think, they were built according to certain plan, like an urban planning. But in Novosibirsk, we have what is called infill. So basically when the building or something is built,
Randomly.
Absolutely. So the buildings just pop up randomly. What does that mean? That means there's absolutely no infrastructure then. So
There's no zoning, because in America, the
yes.
zoning is very strict. I mean, maybe not so much in Boston. I'm not sure about Boston, but in America, you have industrial zoning, you have residential zoning, then you have commercial zoning. And the great thing about Europe, so for instance, if you go to Amsterdam, you see houses above shops, you see, everything is blended in together. Whereas in America, everything is much more separated.
But Novosibirsk is a very random city in this way. So because, let's say they wanted to build, 3 blocks of flats. Okay, maybe if you're lucky, they're going to build, some kind of supermarket and a school. But then you have a lot of space that is, empty. But it's not enough to build, the whole block. So they just build one building. And most likely it's going to be an office building, sometimes a block of flats. But okay, you have, let's say, 600 people living in there. Some of them have children, but children have no school to go to. So that's absolutely illogical. Very often it absolutely is illogical. Yeah. And then some neighborhoods, I used to live in one of them, and the numeration of the buildings was crazy because it was 7, 9, 15, 39, and 52.
Sometimes it's impossible to find a building.
Oh,
it's you walk around this and you just, where is it? It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's walkable. Novosibirsk is lovely. It's walkable. I can't say it's the most beautiful because it was never supposed to be beautiful. It was built as an industrial point in the middle of Trans-Siberian. So, but again, it has its problems. It has its good sides, of course. I mean, the amount of places to eat is fantastic.
It really is,
God, so many coffee places. Different coffee shops, cafes. Oh, God.
So why don't we talk then about first about big cities? So what are the good and bad sides of living in a big city?
Well, let's start with the good side. So the good sides is, of course, you have access to all sorts of attractions and clubs, bars, whatever you like to do. You have that access at your fingertips. You can meet people, fairly easy, but in other ways you can't meet people because people are moving in and out of the city all the time. So depending on if you like traveling, you can access airports. So for instance, if you live in London, it's great because you have an airport which connects you to almost anywhere you like in the world. So those are the main advantages of cities, so attractions and potential travel.
I would also say more opportunities in terms of work.
Of course,
and
definitely.
very often studying. But mostly work. So more workspaces, offices and whatnot, companies. But what are the bad sides of living in a big city?
Well, the costs are just insane. The cost
we
of
can
living
stop
is
right
insane.
here then. This is the main one.
Because
this is crazy.
Crime as well. So if you live in London, there is actually quite a lot of crime in London. So if you walk, it's kind of dangerous walking at parks at night or early evening. So you've got to be a bit careful in London. If you have a bicycle, it's going to get robbed at some point.
Has yours been stolen?
Luckily, no. But all of my friends have had bikes robbed. All of them.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I treated my bike like my baby. No. So luckily, no, but it happens all the time. And you have expert bike thieves who know everything about bikes, and they make a lot of money selling stolen bikes. So
wow.
Yeah, speaking about safety, actually, in China, they kind of have solved this problem. So they have cameras everywhere. So people are being, careful.
Well,
and the crime is pretty low there.
Given what kind of punishment they have, I'm not that surprised.
Yeah, China is safe. Like you can just walk around and
exactly at night, anywhere, literally.
Wow.
It's really safe. Like Thailand as well. I mean, if you don't speak about tourist places, like actual just cities where people live, they can just walk at night. Nobody will just come to you. Nobody will rob you. At least I've never heard of it in the city where I was living. Indonesia, I think the same, but it might be because of the religion, probably. So
Yeah, whereas if we think about London, New York City, oh God. Yeah, you got to be careful in New York City, yeah. I have actually, maybe you must have seen this video. God, what's his name? Andrew something. He's a stand-up comedian. And he said, I live in New York City. I've lived in New York City for the last 6 years. And every time I go somewhere, I am afraid of, being mugged. So, and then he said, but I have come up with an idea of how to, avoid being mugged. And he said, every time I step out, I fake a Russian accent. He's like, Russians are the scariest white people.
Yeah.
They've earned it.
Seriously.
So, and I think, well, because at some point I went to New York City, but we stayed at Harlem. And we only found that out when we actually got there. So Harlem is not the best place to go to. So it's very dangerous, and it might be extra dangerous if you happen to be a white-skinned person. So, but yeah, actually, putting the Russian face kind of helped. Maybe it's just us
New
being
York
dumb.
had a 20-year kind of 20-year patch of safety. So after I'd say the year 2000, New York became a really safe place to live. Then recently it's been dipping a little bit, but prior to 2000, New York was a horrible place.
Yeah.
It was nasty and stuff would
Even
happen.
police officers couldn't, do anything.
But the upside of this, because New York used to be actually a really cheap place to live, funnily enough. I don't know if you know the artist Jean-Michel Basquiat. Do you know him? He's this famous street artist who was big in the 80s. He died in the late 80s, but he used to rent an apartment for, I think it was $80 a month.
Oh God, seriously.
That's so
Even
cool.
though he would live amongst all sorts of scary people, it was still a really cheap place. And as a result of the cheap rents, all these artists live in New York, and it was such a vibrant, fun place to live, despite the fact that you could get stabbed by a crackhead. But
Who cares about that?
Who cares about that? But
That's the risk you're taking.
all
You're
this
willing to
culture
take.
came out of that situation. So, yeah.
Yeah, whereas now New York City is not the safest place, but still, it depends on what part of the city you're talking about, but it's so damn expensive.
It's crazy.
Right.
It's like you want to rent a room and it's going to be like $1,000 and more depending on the area.
Probably.
Yeah. So, all right. So the price, the safety. What if we talk about rural areas, in contrast? What can be a good side of living in a rural area?
The air quality.
Definitely, yeah. Big cities, yeah. We've got to mention the pollution. Yeah, in big cities, it's so high. I remember in China when I lived in a small city. I mean, 1.5 million population, kind of a small city, but still.
A village.
Yeah, village, exactly. And every time you go out, in the morning, you have to check this app where the air quality is kind of, checked. And if it's more than 40 or 50, so you have to wear a mask every day. So, yeah. And it was a small city. You can imagine
I remember I have a friend who used to live in Beijing.
Oh,
and she was
God.
posting, different pics of this app. And sometimes it was 100 something and it was like red.
Yeah.
And I guess what was written was like, don't go outside at all. But this is so
Exactly.
scary.
Yeah, and it says sometimes, don't open the window. Just stay inside. Yeah.
This
And
is
it's
horrible.
crazy.
That's rough, yeah.
And the rank, of lung cancer, all these problems, it's really terrifying.
So yeah, in rural area, you have nothing like that. You have fresh
Definitely.
air,
Yeah.
happy cows, mooing somewhere in the fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this perfect picture in my head of living, in a small house somewhere, I don't know, in a village with, I don't know, my farm probably, something like that, But I understand if I actually live there, after 5 days, I would just
I was gonna ask, do you think you're
crying? Yeah, I
So
wouldn't be
you,
able to.
want a little cottage in rural.
Yeah, but I mean,
rural
it's only a
Scotland.
perfect picture in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm
one
not sure if
one
I'd be
interesting thing I remembered. So in Russian, apparently cottage, that's like a big house.
It is a big house,
that's
yeah,
a
but in
big house.
English,
In English, it's kind of like, small and
small,
cozy.
like you can picture like, I don't know, like a grandma living there or something.
yeah. This is why,
Yeah.
when she's like, I want to have a cottage. I'm like, oh, you want to live in a small house? They're like, no, big one. Yeah, it's interesting how that word came into Russian with a totally different meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, why?
Actually, what if I ask you, what is your dream accommodation maybe? In what area would you want to live?
Definitely next to sea. It doesn't matter again if it's like
big city, small town, I don't care.
Yeah, just the sea. But seriously, it's like, I don't know. Like, I've lived next to the sea several times. It was like in Thailand, in Scotland, in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, it was like, I don't know, 20 minutes walking from the sea. And God, it was also the ocean. I mean, the Indian Ocean. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Maybe you'd like Australia. Maybe.
Probably, but all these, spiders.
Yeah, the spiders.
Not the best thing, probably.
Yeah, everything wants to kill you there.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my God, it's I'm going to tell you because I'm not sure if you guys have listened to, because we had a podcast about domestic difficulties, a very fun one. Actually, listeners, if you haven't listened to this, please do. It was one of my favorite episodes ever. And in there, Mike, who's Australian, told us about Novosibirsk, and living in here. And he said, there's one thing I don't like and I miss about Australia. I'm like, okay, what's that? Maybe it's the warmth, the water. He's like, the creatures that get inside. I'm like, are you crazy? He's like, in Novosibirsk, I live on the 16th floor and it's dead. Nobody gets inside. In Australia, you have like a possum, a scorpion, a spider, a cockroach. Somebody gets into your apartment at least once a week. And I'm like, say thank you that you have nobody in here. No, but he's like, no, you don't understand. It gives you no life. So yeah.
Well, yeah, different cities have their different insects. I mean, what are the insects here in Novosibirsk? Do you have a cockroach? Are there cockroaches here in Novosibirsk?
Yeah, they're tiny.
Yeah, there used to be a lot of cockroaches, but now
because in Vegas, when I was living in Vegas, it was horrible. The cockroaches were everywhere. And when it was hot in the summer, all the cockroaches wanted to come inside because it was so hot outside. and
you're like, stay out of my place.
And I had some neighbors who moved out of their apartment. And when you move out, it disturbs the cockroaches. And they
just run. Oh, my God.
And I thought, oh, God, I can't live in this place anymore. It's so bad.
I actually think this is one of the disadvantages. Well, I do not know, but I think of a rural area as a place with way more creatures that can get inside. Yeah. Whereas in a big city...
It depends what the creatures are, though, because I just hate cockroaches. They are just the worst. I could deal with other things, spiders, whatever, they're fine. But cockroaches, no.
Yeah, I remember in Thailand, I went to school and there was this cockroach. It was like around 10 centimeters long, probably.
God,
and it could fly,
Oh, no.
Yeah, and oh, God.
Well, Ben, you have come to the right place then, because Siberia, I mean, sometimes depending on the building, especially if it's an old building, you might get lots of cockroaches, but they're tiny. And then you can just, you don't usually even call an exterminator. You just buy some kind of chemicals and that's it. But yeah.
Well, I was reading this or watching this thing about, because I was watching how to exterminate cockroaches when I was in Vegas because I wanted to get rid of these horrible pests. And I was watching this documentary about New York City and how, of course, New York has a big problem with rats and cockroaches.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
And it's illegal to buy. There's this special poison which is now illegal in New York City because it's so strong and I think it can really screw up like the ecosystem or something.
Ooh.
And it's sold on the black market because it works so well and it just kills everything in the apartment.
Wow.
But the thing with cockroaches is that they evolve. So eventually, after 30 years of being exposed to a certain poison, they're going to evolve to become super. So just give it a few
I've only
years.
seen cockroaches twice in the US. One of them was dead. The other one was pretty much alive in my room, which I did not like very much. But well, technically when we speak about the perfect place to live for us, it's the amount of cold/heat we're ready to bear and the amount or the size of the insects and cockroaches and spiders that we're ready to handle.
And other disadvantages probably that we can't tolerate.
For Michael, that was an advantage. I guess Michael liked the cockroaches.
He's like, I don't like Siberia very much. Too cold. Too little life. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Okay. So Ben, would you like to live in a big city or in a small town?
I like mid-sized cities. This is literally the perfect size city, Novosibirsk, in my opinion. My dream is to have a small apartment in a really good location in a mid-sized city like Novosibirsk. Like, so I would love to live on. I already live in a cool place, but I'd love to live on ulica Lenina and have like an apartment there, a small apartment, and then have a dacha outside of town. That's my dream.
A small apartment with, soundproof windows,
Not
probably.
necessarily. I quite like the sound of the traffic, as long as it's not the horns. I love, because I used to go.
What
to
about the of the motorcycles? Sorry for the listeners, but it's
really strange. Like, I used to live by some train tracks. I love that sound at night. I love it.
I live next to the train tracks.
Such a nice sound.
Comfy,
Yeah.
But it's different. But let's say motorcycles on Lenina and other major cities in Novosibirsk. It's just
Yeah.
I used to sleep over at my friend's house all the time, and he used to live in on a really, really busy high road, and for some reason, all the traffic just made me sleep so well.
I think it depends on a person, and initially you get used to it, but actually we can say that this is one of the disadvantages of living in a big city: the noise pollution.
Yeah,
because the noises are so loud, and it's not only the traffic itself, but it can be the people. Because if you live in the center in the summer, there are lots of crowds, and they have fun, they go drink, they're loud, they shout.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what about yourself, actually? What is a perfect place to live?
I think that I would love to live in a town, but not not a village, so not like 10,000-20,000 people, but like a town, or maybe like something less than 1 million people, maybe like 500,000 people, but very close to a big city.
So Edinburgh, actually.
Edinburgh, okay.
It's not so far from London,
I was thinking more like, places like Hoboken, for example, in New Jersey, because New Jersey is only separated by the river from New York City.
That's closer.
So technically it's small town. So usually people who, you can get an apartment with a view to the New York City skyline, which is majestic. The taxes are lower than in New York State. So, but then 40 minutes on the train, you're in Manhattan. So this sounds like, something I would like. Quiet, not too many people, better air. But at the same time, you want any kind of entertainment. You want to go to, a Broadway show. You don't need to spend 4 hours, driving from Boston to New York City, for example.
That's true.
But it's still, the prices are still higher than in other places. So yeah, I don't know. I really want to be close to a big city, but not in a big city.
Definitely, yeah.
Probably, because I love all the fun, and the hustle and bustle. But if it's not, 24/7. So yeah. So, and we've mentioned and we've given the definition to urbanization. But do you think it's more of a positive or a negative trend?
I think it's just something that we have to live with. I think it's kind of...
Yeah, it just is. I mean, I can't really... It's just the result of our post-agricultural society, I guess.
I recently had an interesting discussion with a student of mine on the topic of, do we need rural areas at all? Do we need little villages? Or should we just get rid of them?
Well, it depends on access to utilities such as water and internet. So if you have access to internet and water and electricity, then you might as well just live in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Well, we talked about, because Russian villages very often are very sad places, with very bad connection, and not only internet connection. Sometimes they don't have internet at all, but phone connection. They do have water and electricity, but they don't have a good hospital. They don't have a post office, nothing like that. So, and sometimes it is just cheaper and better to move these people to a bigger village or to a small town rather than build a whole hospital there and then find professionals to work in there and whatnot. Well, but I think this is only about Russia because it's a vast place. Whereas I'm pretty sure villages in Europe, for example, they're so close to big cities anyway.
That's why they're so nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can just get on a train everywhere from these little villages.
Whereas in here, you can take a train, 6 hours later, you're still in Novosibirsk region.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's so huge. Okay. And urbanization involves several processes. So there are such processes as urban development, urban redevelopment, and urban renewal. Now, can you help the listeners and, me maybe with telling the difference between these three? So do you know the difference?
Well, I
between
guess
these three?
I'm just guessing here. Urban development, I guess that's, for instance, when Novosibirsk was Nikolaevsk, and then it was being developed into a railroad town, I guess.
Okay, so we can say that urban development is building new places. So
Yeah.
building whatever that is. Buildings, stadiums, facilities, hospitals. Okay, makes sense.
Building, like newer houses, maybe. Like destroying older houses that are not probably as safe. Or maybe that's renewal, actually.
Yeah, maybe.
That is redevelopment. So when older buildings are demolished and something else is built on their place, that would be redevelopment. And then renewal then is...
God,
Maybe
it's confusing.
kind of what New York City's gone through, I guess. Perhaps.
New York City is going through a hell of a lot of processes. You have to be more
It's-
specific.
Well, how New York had its own established culture, and then people left the city, I guess, because it became such a violent place. And then,
Well, renewal,
back.
yeah, in a way, renewal is renovation or, modernizing things. So basically you add or change or renovate what already exists. So let's say, renovate a house there, fix the pipes over here. So whatever, this is
Actually, I
renewal.
have Googled it, like all these three words. And Google said that it's basically almost the same. There
They're
isn't a
very
lot of
good, yeah.
difference.
Yeah. So they're all a part of bigger process, which is
Yeah,
urbanization. Yeah. And there are places that, do not like urban renewal. For them, it's easier to just, demolish and build something new, or just, don't do anything.
Yeah. And just leave the city alone. Yeah.
well, sticking on the topic of development, does anyone have an opinion on gentrification? Is this something that you feel is happening here in Novosibirsk or no?
Let's define gentrification, because this might be the word that not many people are familiar with, or some might be
So
unfamiliar.
some people think it's okay. So before I start, but some people feel that gentrification is just a normal thing. It just happens. It's when a city becomes nicer, and some people, on the other hand, feel that gentrification is a bad thing. That it's making the city harder to afford. So gentrification essentially just means making a city nicer, I guess. Money coming into a city
but more expensive at the same time. I personally think that it's depends on, on how, well, on the level maybe. But in general, I think that gentrification is a good thing. Why? Because it inevitably will lead to renewal, to better places, better services, for example. With the rent and other prices, well, they're going to skyrocket anyway.
Yeah.
It seems like no matter what we do, they will say, it's the reason, it's caused by gentrification. If not, they'll say inflation. If not, they'll say, prices, there's always a reason. So, but if at the same time the prices are rising and we have a nicer area.
At least we have some pluses.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there's a huge movement in London. So I don't know if you've heard of Brixton. Brixton is
the town?
It's a part of South London. So it's a really cultural part of South London.
Brixton, it's not, I think I took a trip there when I was going to see Cutty Sark and the Greenwich.
It's
like on the way there.
It's kind of on the way there. I mean, it's further away from the river, but it's not far from there. Personally, I don't have a problem with gentrification. I think it's just a city becoming a nicer place. But there's a lot of people who want to stop money from coming in because it makes the city more expensive. So, for instance, I used to go to the skate park quite a lot when I was a teenager in London. And all the skaters who I used to know, they are all rebels and they're all like 30 years old, and they all want to stop rich people from moving into Brixton and making the place an expensive place. And I mean, I don't really have a problem with it, because when rich people move into places that were previously cheaper, they're going to hire cleaners, they're going to bring money into an area and hopefully make the area better. But a lot of people are stopping like new coffee shops from being built, or they're stopping.
Not the coffee shops, please.
Well, not even coffee shops. They're stopping buildings from being built. So expensive new buildings, residential buildings.
But what's the point? So if you do that, if you stop it, so you're going to be stuck. So if money doesn't come into your place, then who's going to renovate all the existing buildings?
I know.
Who's going to invest? If there's no reason to, if the investors and people know that the city does not want to evolve, they're not going to put their money into it. And I don't think, that government can afford, renovating all the neighborhoods, all the buildings.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not the government's responsibility to do all of that. I mean, the government's there to provide a framework. It's not there to do everything for everyone.
So of course, I, as a person who's thinking about, a place that I want to live in, I think that at some point I'll have to take a mortgage, and definitely I don't like the interest rates. I don't like, having to pay thousands of dollars, for 45 years of my life until I probably die. And, but well, this is the way, unfortunately, this is the way that our world works right now. So
It's just Mother Nature. That's all it is.
Well, little is left of Mother Nature in big cities, but
Well, yeah.
yeah, I agree. So I think this is what happens to Novosibirsk as well. So if we look at different central parts of the city, if you go a little bit further from Krasny Prospekt, so you'll see a lot of cool new buildings with expensive flats. And there used to be, for example, a factory right in the center that produced milk that was demolished, and now they have a cool building which is called Milk House, and it's an apartment building. But they're expensive, they're cool, but it's still better than having an old factory over there. Like, let's be fair, which is not working. And if it did, that would be polluting the air right in the center. So,
But the other thing I should mention, it is nice when a city retains its gritty charm. You don't want everything to be like bubble wrapped and too pristine. I quite like what I like about, for instance, Italy. If you go to Milan, there they keep all the old trams, so you can see the old trams. They don't renovate the trams; they just keep them clean. And
but that
it.
depends
Not
on
like
what
that.
exactly we're talking about. Because, for example, having a factory right in the middle of a city is probably not the best idea. But renew the old existing houses, keep them, from being demolished. It's another thing. So that is history, and having lots of smoky pipes is another thing.
It's kind of sad when they actually demolish, old buildings, historical buildings.
Yeah.
It kind of happened in Novosibirsk a little bit, I think. In
little-
the center of the city.
Oh yeah, that's there were a lot of historical buildings, wooden houses dating back to like 90 years ago. And then they suspiciously and, accidentally burned down. So there were no problems with the wires until there was a problem with the wires. So and then of course, not long after, there was a new building being built in the territory in its place. That is sad, but there are still places where they try to keep this history. Not everywhere, but But some cities do not do not evolve. So in some cities die out. So there's an example, a situation of urban decay. They turn into ghost towns. Why is that? So what can be the reason for that?
Well, lack of work usually.
Unemployment.
What can cause? Do you have an example?
Yeah, it's like if you speak about Russian villages. Yeah, so there is no work there. But I mean, it's not urban decay, but it's like village decay.
Can we say that? Oh God! What's the city in the north of Russia?
Norilsk.
No, yes, but also there are still quite a lot of people living there. The factories exist. I think it's Vorkuta, which used to be a thriving industrial place with coal mines and whatnot. But then later, the coal was basically there was no coal anymore. So the factories started to close down. People have no job. It's far from, any kind of another city to go to. So, and I see that now people not only, they try to sell the apartments. Now they say, just take it. We are even ready to pay to you for taking it.
Oh, I'll have it.
Are you sure about that?
Maybe.
But yeah, so there
now I think it's changing. You can live anywhere and just work, online. So
Fair enough. So maybe that'll stop some cities from, yeah.
Well, in California, there's quite a few ghost towns. So
Are there?
Yeah, there was the gold rush. So back in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. So as soon as the gold started, well, not disappearing because there's still some gold in California. As soon as all that industry started, becoming less, as soon as that industry started to collapse a little bit, all these ghost towns started to appear because no one needs to live by these mines anymore.
Yeah.
And I think this is what is happening to Detroit right now. So it's decaying slowly because they used to have, huge car manufacturing, I think, companies.
Exactly, yeah.
But then, the interest for American cars has kind of, surged. So they chose and they started to prefer European and Japanese cars instead. So, and thus the industry kind of collapsed there. So, and people had to move out. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, so if anyone knows, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a mayor, so I think it was a mayor of Detroit, who increased the taxes and made the conditions even worse to live there. So even more people moved out. So, and thus now we have a very dangerous place as a result with no work, lots of crime.
Yeah.
This is sad. This is sad because it was a thriving city. It was fantastic at some point, in all its glory. But
So this is a message to all mayors all across the world. Please keep our taxes low. We don't like high taxes. We want to live in your city.
So what do you think should be done to these places, to these ghost towns or, towns that are dying, slowly dying?
No idea, really.
Make them into a festival town, I guess. Yeah.
That's a good
Like,
idea.
why go to a desert to have a Burning Man every year?
exactly.
Like, if you can have it in Detroit.
Yeah.
Right.
You can just go away. They're going to do, the burning everything part. Yeah, sure.
Just make them into rave towns.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Actually, no, I've been thinking about all the situation with the pandemic, and now people are just trying to move out of the cities, So they're just trying to go have their own, I don't know, little house, little cottage, and just live in the air, So what do you think? Is it going to change because of the pandemic?
Ben?
Well, house prices outside of Los Angeles are soaring right now because everyone's just getting the hell out of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a trend in America. I'm not so sure about the UK, but definitely in America.
It's happening a little bit as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Russia as such, just because, in here, a rural area or a village is kind of far away.
Yeah.
But in the summer, though, so I remember that in the summer when this pandemic started, so people, especially, in the summer, it was just the beginning. People got scared. It was just, growing and growing and growing. We didn't know what to expect. And I know a lot of people who moved to their dachas and they got internet there. So they were able to work. So, and they kind of started to like it. So I think since we've moved and we've changed, the way we work, it might lead to people changing the way they live as well.
Yeah, probably.
But it all depends on your habits as well. Because I had a choice to live somewhere in Akademgorodok, for example, fresh air, fantastic place. Absolutely no facilities. So no coffee shops, not enough places to go to. You want to go to a cinema, you have to, go to the center. So or to live here right next to the subway station and very close to everything. And I chose the latter just because it's my habit. I'm so used to going to places. I'm so used to spending my time and working or just reading in a coffee shop. So I wasn't ready to give it up.
Do you feel Akademgorodok's going to develop? Do you think it's going to get bigger in size? Do you think there's going to be more shops, for instance?
I think it is developing now because they have new places appearing. They have 2 years ago, they had the first shopping mall, like real shopping mall with a cinema, like modern cinema. And now
There was a shopping mall, but it was like old and tiny.
But no, this is just the mall. But about growing, maybe not too much because now, well, have you been there? Have you seen the new university?
No, I can't wait to go there. I have a student who I do Zoom classes with, and he says it's a cool place. I really can't wait to go.
It is. Yeah, I love it so much.
It's a fantastic place.
It's totally different from Novosibirsk. It's like,
even in terms
it has
of people,
its special atmosphere. It's like a little St. Petersburg.
Oh, I used to actually give excursion, some tours to tourists over there. So if you're ever interested, you know who to call. Who are you going to call? Anywho, the thing is that after the university was built, people demanded, to protect the forest because a lot of forest was cut down in order to build this huge building. And now they're not allowed to cut down the forest in order to build buildings. So it is protected now because otherwise there wouldn't be Akademgorod.
That's wonderful, I think.
This is what makes it fantastic. Of course, the apartment prices in general, even if in very old,
high,
oh
really,
god,
really?
uncomparable to Novosibirsk. Seriously.
Well, how much does a studio apartment cost there generally?
I think the same as in the very heart of Novosibirsk, like 26,000. Yeah. But in an old house. So, with lots of, I lived there for a couple of years. Then I lived in a spider house, as I called it. There were always so many spiders, God, and I'm terrified of them. So I moved out the moment I had to move out and choose another place. So I'm like, yep, I'm out of there. So yeah. All right. And so in general, we have covered the problems. So let's just kind of, reiterate. So the problems of big cities are the crime rate, which we've mentioned.
Yeah, air quality,
transport
price.
The cost in general, I would say. Commuting time as well. If you live in a big city. What else? I think since we have the cost of accommodation, we can also have the problem of homelessness. It is, I think, a huge problem in Los Angeles.
Oh, absolutely incredible. It's just everywhere you go. I mean, it's sad. I mean, everywhere you go, you just see homeless people and you feel so bad, but you can't help everyone though because there's just so many homeless people. But then again, the weather does play a role in that.
They can live outside.
Yeah, they can. It's true. I mean, it's nice.
It sounds bad, but they can.
You can if you
like
really
Siberia,
had to.
Yeah,
exactly. You just die here if you slept outside.
And I guess that, I don't know about like huge cities, but I believe that when there are lots of buildings and everything, you can't always have enough schools and, places and kindergartens. So which means that there's a higher competition maybe, or just, the classes being packed with like 40, 45 people in one room. So not enough resources maybe for everyone sometimes. Oh, all right.
Also, we got to speak about the crowds, So when you go outside, there are so many people everywhere. I mean, it feels good sometimes, but I don't know. For me, it's annoying. Like, really?
I think it's a huge problem more like in places like China. Because in here, we have almost 2 million people, but they're more like spread evenly, so you don't feel this unless you're in rush hour in a subway station, then it's packed. But and in their cars in a traffic jam, but in the street I feel like we don't feel it as much because I remember
not as much
taking a train from Beijing to Harbin and I was so scared. I felt like 5 million people were in that train station. That was scary. But
I just love how in China you have the world's biggest city, Chongqing.
I don't know.
Exactly. Nobody even knows of this place.
But it's the biggest one.
And it's the biggest one. It has something like 25 million people.
Oh my, are you serious?
Yeah, I've heard about this. Yeah, but I forgot the name.
Yeah, it's just nobody
25?
knows the city.
I would be no.
People everywhere. No. I can imagine huge crowds.
I can't.
Of people.
It sounds like a nightmare.
Definitely.
I mean, New York City is 15 million people. But the only time when you actually feel, these and see these 15 million people, if you, for some unknown reason, go to Times Square, because that's where like 90% of the tourists are. But if you just, go to work to college or something like that, you don't see these thousands and millions of people. So it's more or less spread as well.
Oh, wow.
So I think it depends on the city structure and the amount of people. Because all right. Ooh, that was fun. That was really fun. Okay, so that was the Big Apple School podcast. And today we discussed urbanization. We talked about our experience of living in big cities and huge cities for some. We saw that none of us actually has lived in a rural area as such. So we talked about the problems that we might face in a big city. We talked about rural areas and advantages and disadvantages. And we discussed Novosibirsk in much detail. So thank you for listening. And remember, if you struggle to understand our conversation, you're always welcome to our website, which is bigappleschool.com/podcast. You can find full scripts of each episode there, so you can listen and read. And it's very, mobile phone friendly. So don't be afraid that you'll have 15 pages of a text. You won't. So also, if you want to get more content, which will help you learn English, always welcome to any social media. Just find us there. Big Apple School. We have pages on Instagram, VK, YouTube, Telegram. Don't worry, it's not repeated information. It's all different everywhere. All right, so that was Katya, and my guests for today were
Natalie
and
Benjamin.
Stay tuned, and we'll see you around.